The stars looked peaceful that morning, but peace never lasted long in the galaxy. Captain Jiho Nam stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the view screen display the endless void of space. His ship was 3 months into a survey mission, mapping star systems that nobody cared about. It was boring work, but Jiho preferred boring. Boring meant his crew stayed alive. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Una Park from the weapons station. She was young, only 27, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "It's a distress signal, but not like any I've seen before." Jiho walked over to her console. The signal pulsed in waves, almost musical. "What species?" "Quillari, sir. From Crystallis 4. Una's fingers danced across her screen. "They're broadcasting on every frequency. They sound desperate." Dr. Hana Kang looked up from her science station. At 35, she was the ship's chief xenobiologist and the smartest person Jiho had ever met. "The Quillari are peaceful. They've never had a military. If they're calling for help, something terrible must be happening." Jiho pulled up the message. The translation came through in broken fragments, but the fear was clear. "Unknown attackers. Thousands dead. Cities burning. Please help anyone, please." "Play the full message," Jiho ordered. A voice filled the bridge, trembling and desperate. The Quillari spoke in harmonic tones that their translators converted to human speech. "This is Elder Silvereth of Crystallis 4. We are under attack by an unknown force. They came from the dark spaces between stars. They destroy everything. They consume everything. We have sent calls to the Lexari Federation. We have begged the Tethran Empire. We have pleaded with the Veil Collective. No one answers. No one comes. Our people are dying. If anyone can hear this, if anyone has mercy, please help us. We have children. We have families. We do not want to die." The bridge went silent. Jiho felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had seen war before. He knew that sound. That was the sound of a species facing extinction. "Have any of the major powers responded?" he asked. Hana checked her console. The Luxari sent a formal statement of concern, but no ships. The Tethran cited their non-interference policy. The Veil Collective hasn't responded at all. "Sir, the Galactic Council is debating what to do, but it's been 6 hours since the first distress call. They're still debating. 6 hours. People could die 1,000 ways in 6 hours." Jiho looked at his crew. The Indomitable was a small ship, just one exploration vessel with a crew of 200. Earth's government had sent them out here to look at rocks and take notes. They had basic weapons enough to scare off pirates. They were not a warship, but they were there and no one else was coming. "Set course for Crystallis 4, Jiho said. "Maximum speed." Una turned in her chair, eyes wide. "Sir, we haven't been authorized." Command is sitting in comfortable offices 30 light years away," Jiho interrupted. His voice was calm but hard as iron. "Those people are dying right now." "We're going," Hana stood up. "I'm with you, Captain." Una hesitated for only a second, then smiled. "Let's go save some people." The Indomitable turned in space and jumped to faster than light speed. They would reach Crystallis 4 in 18 hours. Jiho hoped that would be fast enough. During the journey, Hana analyzed what little data they had. The attackers were biological ships, living vessels that moved in swarms. They had appeared in 17 different systems over the past month, always in peaceful territories, always against species with no military strength. They attacked, they consumed, they moved on. "They're like locusts," Hana said, staring at her screen. "They strip a planet of all biological matter and then leave. No communication, no mercy, just hunger." "Does anyone know what they are?" Jiho asked. "The Council calls them the Vorax. Beyond that, nobody knows much. They come from outside Council space, from some dark corner of the galaxy we haven't explored." Hana's expression was grim. "Captain, if what I'm reading is correct, there could be thousands of ships at Crystallis 4. We're one vessel. Then we'll have to be smart about it," Jiho said. When they finally dropped out of faster than light near Crystallis 4, the sight made Jiho's blood run cold. The planet hung in space, beautiful and blue-green, but surrounding it were hundreds of dark shapes. The Vorax bioships looked like massive insects, all chitinous armor and grasping limbs. They swarmed around the planet like flies on a corpse. "How many?" Jiho whispered. "Scanning now," Una said. Her voice shook slightly. "I count 3,200 ships, sir. And they're still coming. 3,000. One human ship against 3,000 alien vessels." Commander Taeyang Choi stepped onto the bridge. He was Jiho's second in command, a tactical genius with ice in his veins. He took one look at the view screen and whistled low. Well, that's not good. Can we get a message to the surface? Jiho asked. Hana worked her console. Yes, but the Vorax will detect it. They'll know we're here. They're going to know anyway. Open a channel to Elder Silvereth. A moment later, a hologram appeared on the bridge. The Quillari looked like a being made of living crystal, their body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. But Elder Silvereth's light was dim, flickering like a dying candle. This is Captain Jiho Nam of the Earthship Indomitable. We received your distress call. We're here to help. The Elder stared at Jiho for a long moment. Earth, the Deathworld species? You are the ones who came? There was disbelief in the harmonic voice and something else. Disappointment, maybe, or despair. We're what you've got, Jiho said. How many survivors? 50,000 in the southern continent. The rest are gone. The Elder's voice broke. One ship. You sent one ship, against thousands. Why did you even come? You will die here with us. Maybe, Jiho admitted. But we're not going to let you die alone. We're humans, Elder. We're from a death world. We learned a long time ago that when someone needs help, you help them. That's what civilized beings do. Elder Silvereth's crystal body seemed to brighten slightly. The galaxy abandoned us. They fear the Vorax too much. They fear death too much. But you came anyway. That's what we do, Jiho said simply. Now let's figure out how to get your people out of there. Taeyang, start working on an evacuation plan. Hana, I need everything you can learn about these Vorax ships. Yuna, charge all weapons. This is going to get ugly. As his crew jumped into action, Jiho watched the swarm of alien ships circling the planet. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to learn something important. They were about to learn why humans were called Deathworlders. They were about to learn what happened when you threatened innocent people in front of species that refused to back down. The Indomitable moved forward into the swarm, one small ship against an army. But it wasn't alone. 200 humans crewed that vessel, and every one of them had decided that today was a good day to show the galaxy what courage looked like. The battle for Crystallis 4 was about to begin. Commander Taeyang Choi studied the tactical display with cold calculation. 3,000 enemy ships surrounded the planet, but they moved in predictable patterns. They were efficient hunters, but they had never faced prey that fought back. They're lazy, Taeyang said, pointing at the screen. Look at their formation. No defensive positions, no scouts. They think they've already won. Can we use that? Jiho asked. Absolutely. Taeyang smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. They evolved on easy worlds. They've never had to fight for survival. But we're from Earth. We know how to fight dirty. Dr. Hana had been analyzing the Vorax biology for hours. She looked exhausted but excited. Captain, I think I found something. These bioships are incredibly efficient, but they're fragile. They evolved in low-gravity, resource-rich environments. They've never developed heavy armor because they never needed it. Our weapons should cut through them like paper. What about their numbers? Yuna asked. Even if we can hurt them, there are 3,000 of them. We don't fight 3,000 at once, Taeyang said. We hit small groups, hit them hard, and disappear before the rest can respond. Classic guerrilla tactics. The Vorax won't understand it because civilized species don't fight that way. But we're not civilized, Jiho said quietly. Not by their standards. We're Deathworlders. The plan was insane. 20 Marines and drop pods would launch toward the planet's surface, targeting 3 Vorax bioships that had landed near a Quillari city. They would destroy the ships, rescue as many civilians as possible, and extract before the Vorax could organize a response. Squad leader Sora Lim stood in the launch bay, checking her weapon for the 3rd time. At 31, she had survived the harsh domed colonies on Venus where a single system failure meant death. She understood pressure, she understood fear, and she understood that sometimes you had to walk into hell because nobody else would. Listen up, Sora told her squad. These Vorax think they're apex predators. They're about to learn they're wrong. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we get those civilians out. Remember, we're humans. We don't quit. We don't break. And we definitely don't lose to some overgrown space bugs. Her Marines cheered. They were scared. Only a fool wouldn't be scared, but they were ready. The drop pods launched, screaming through the atmosphere like meteors. The Vorax ships detected them immediately and opened fire. But the pods were designed to survive Earth's most extreme conditions. Vorax weapons barely scratched them. Sora's pod hit the ground hard enough to crack concrete. She was out in seconds, weapon raised, scanning for threats. Around her, 19 more Marines deployed with military precision. The Vorax bioships looked like giant insects, each one the size of a building. They were covered in black chitin that glistened wetly in the sun. As Sora watched, one of them extended a tube and began draining something from the ground. Biological matter. They were consuming the planet itself. Weapons free, Sora ordered. Light them up. The Marines opened fire. Human weapons spat superheated plasma and explosive rounds. The first Vorax ship's armor cracked under the assault, then shattered. Green fluid sprayed everywhere as the creature died, shrieking in frequencies that made Sora's teeth hurt. The other two ships reacted immediately. Vorax soldiers poured out. Hundreds of insectoid warriors, each the size of a human. They moved fast, incredibly fast, chittering and clicking as they charged. "Contact!" someone yelled. The battle became chaos. Vorax warriors were quick, but human soldiers were tougher. When a Vorax claw ripped through a Marine's armor, the man kept fighting. When another Marine took a hit that would have killed any other species, she dropped to one knee and kept shooting. Sora fought like a demon. She had grown up in an environment that tried to kill her every day. A little pain wasn't going to stop her. She put 3 rounds into a Vorax warrior's head, watched it drop and moved to the next target. "They're not that tough," her corporal shouted, sounding almost disappointed. He was right. The Vorax were fast and numerous, but they had never fought an enemy that could take damage and keep coming. They didn't understand that humans could function with broken bones, torn muscles, and massive blood loss. They didn't understand that pain was just another sensation to be pushed through. Within 15 minutes, all 3 bioships were destroyed, and the Vorax soldiers were in full retreat. The Marines had taken casualties, 5 wounded, none dead, but they were still combat effective. Now came the hard part: rescue. The Quillari civilians huddled in what remained of their city, terrified and shimmering with distress. There were thousands of them, mostly children and elders. When they saw the humans, their crystalline bodies flickered with confusion. "We're here to help," Sora said, trying to sound gentle despite her blood-covered armor. "We're getting you off this planet, but you need to move fast." An elderly Quillari approached, body dim and cracked from stress. "You are from Earth, the Deathworld species. We thought no one was coming." "We're here," Sora said simply. "Now let's get you somewhere safe." The evacuation took 4 hours. The Indomitable sent down every transport shuttle it had, packing in Quillari civilians until the ships could barely lift off. The Vorax tried to stop them, sending wave after wave of warriors, but human Marines held every defensive position. Corporal Do-Hyun Lee's squad was surrounded 3 times. They fought their way out each time, carrying wounded civilians on their backs. When Do-Hyun took a Vorax claw to the shoulder, he switched to his left hand and kept shooting. "Why won't they stop?" A Vorax hive node broadcasted in confusion. "Why don't they die?" Because they were human. Because Earth had spent billions of years trying to kill them and they were still there. Because when your species evolved, dodging predators, surviving plagues, and enduring ice ages, a few alien insects weren't going to stop you. By the time the last transport lifted off, 50,000 Quillari civilians were safe aboard the Indomitable. The ship was crowded beyond capacity, life support systems straining, but everyone was alive. Elder Silvereth stood on the bridge, staring at Captain Jiho with something like awe. "You saved my people. 1 ship, 200 humans. You stood against thousands and won." "We did what needed to be done," Jiho said, though he looked exhausted. "That's all." "No," the Elder said softly. "That is everything. The Luxari could have sent ships. The Tethron could have helped. But they chose safety over honor. They chose comfort over courage. Only the Deathworlders answered our call." Dr. Hana approached the Elder carefully. "We need to get your people somewhere safe. Is there a Quillari world we can take you to?" "Viridian Prime will accept us," Silvereth said. "But Captain, you must understand. This was only one colony. The Vorax are everywhere. They will keep coming. They will keep consuming. And the galaxy will keep hiding." Jiho's jaw tightened. "Then the galaxy is making a mistake. Because we're not hiding." As the Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying its precious cargo of refugees, a message began spreading across the galactic networks. It was footage from Crystallis 4, recorded by Quillari survivors. It showed human Marines fighting impossible odds. It showed soldiers continuing to battle despite terrible wounds. It showed a species that refused to surrender, refused to run, refused to let innocent people die. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The Deathworlders had done something no other species would attempt. They had looked at overwhelming odds and said, not good enough. In command centers across 1,000 worlds, military strategists tried to understand what they had witnessed. How could humans keep fighting after taking damage that would kill a Luxari? How could they push through pain that would incapacitate a Tethron? How could they function in situations that would break any rational being? They didn't understand. They lived on paradise worlds where evolution had been kind. They had never needed to become weapons just to survive childhood, but humanity understood. Earth had taught them well, and now the galaxy was about to receive an education. The Vorax had made a fatal error. They had attacked when they thought no one would respond. They had assumed the galaxy's compassion had died, replaced by comfortable cowardice. They were right about the galaxy, but they had forgotten about humanity, and humans never forgot those who needed help. The footage from Crystallis 4 reached Earth 3 days later. Within hours, it was everywhere. People watched in their homes, on their data pads, on massive screens in city centers. They watched human Marines fighting against impossible odds. They watched soldiers carrying alien children to safety. They watched squad leader Sora Lim standing over wounded civilians, daring the Vorax to come closer. And they watched the Galactic Council's official response, a carefully worded statement that condemned Captain Jiho's unauthorized military action and demanded Earth recall its vessel immediately. The reaction was explosive. They want us to run? Someone shouted at a protest in New York. They want us to abandon those people? The council sat in their comfortable chambers and did nothing, a woman yelled in Tokyo. But they'll criticize the ones who actually helped? Admiral Hunsikbei sat in his office on the military station above Earth, watching the protests grow. At 55, he was Earth's most decorated officer, a veteran of the Border Wars and the Titan Rebellion. He had spent his entire career following orders, believing in the chain of command. But some orders were wrong. His second-in-command, Captain Minjae Quan, entered without knocking. "Sir, you need to see this." Minjae pulled up data on the main screen. Messages. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They were coming from all over human space, from Mars, from Venus, from the asteroid colonies, from the deep space stations, all saying the same thing: we want to help. "Admiral, these aren't military personnel," Minjae said. "Most of them are civilians. Miners, engineers, traders. They're volunteering their ships to go to Quillari space. They're willing to fight." "That's insane," Hyunsik said, but his voice lacked conviction. "They have no training, no weapons. They'll be slaughtered." "Probably," Minjae agreed. "But they're going anyway. Because that's what humans do, apparently. We see someone in trouble and we can't help ourselves." Hyunsik thought about his career. All those years following orders. All those decorations on his wall. What did they mean if he sat here while civilians flew off to die fighting a battle that should have been the military's responsibility? "Get me a line to Earth Command," he said quietly. "I'm taking the Second Fleet to Crystallis 4. Sir, you'll be court-martialed. Then I'll be court-martialed." Hyunsik stood, straightening his uniform. "But I'll be damned if I let civilians do our job while we hide behind regulations." On Mars, in the domed city of New Shanghai, a young engineer named Nari O worked in her private lab. She was 29, brilliant, and completely uninterested in politics. She just liked building things. Specifically, she liked building weapons that the military said were too dangerous to use. Her latest project was a plasma lance that could punch through a kilometer of solid armor. It was wildly unstable, prone to overheating, and had a 50% chance of exploding if you looked at it wrong. In other words, it was perfect. "They need weapons," Nari muttered to herself, watching the news feeds. "The Vorax have numbers. We need force multipliers." She loaded her prototype onto her personal transport ship. If the military wouldn't use her designs, maybe the volunteers would. And if she died testing them in actual combat, well, that was better than dying of boredom in a lab. Back at Crystallis 4, the situation had grown worse. The Vorax had sent more ships, tens of thousands of them. They seemed personally offended that their prey had fought back. The Indomitable was still there, evacuating more refugees, but Captain Jiho knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "Sir, we have incoming vessels," Yuna reported. "Lots of them." Jiho's heart sank. "More Vorax." "How many?" 47 human ships, sir." Yuna looked up, eyes bright. They're not military. I'm reading cargo haulers, mining vessels, even a few personal yachts. They're all broadcasting the same message. We heard you needed help. Jiho felt something catch in his throat. He pulled up the communications channel. Attention, civilian vessels. You are entering a combat zone. You are not trained for this. You need to turn back, a gruff voice responded, speaking with a thick asteroid belt accent. With respect, Captain, shut up. We watched the footage. We saw what you did. If you're crazy enough to fight alone, we're crazy enough to help. We're miners, another voice added. We drill through asteroids for a living. We can sure as hell drill through some space bugs. More voices joined in, a chorus of volunteers from across human space. Rich and poor, young and old. They had nothing in common except their species, and their stubborn refusal to stand by while others suffered. You're all going to die, Jiho said, but he was smiling. Probably, someone agreed cheerfully, but at least we'll die doing something that matters. The volunteer fleet was a disaster from a military perspective. The ships had mismatched weapons, no coordination, and half the crews had never fired a shot in anger. But they had determination, and they had Tai Yang, who immediately began organizing them into something resembling a fighting force. Okay, listen up, Tai Yang broadcasted to all ships. The Voraks are predictable. They rely on overwhelming numbers. We're going to hit them in waves, rotating ships so our weapons don't overheat. Mining vessels, you're going to use your drilling lasers. Cargo ships, you're going to ram any bioship that gets too close. And for the love of God, if someone tells you to retreat, you retreat. Dead heroes don't save anyone. The defense of Crystallis 4 became legendary. A mining ship called the Rockhopper used its cargo clamps to tear Vorax ships apart. A luxury yacht, the Diamond Sky, proved surprisingly effective at dodging incoming fire, while its wealthy owner cackled over the comms. Nari-O's prototype weapons melted through Vorax armor like a torch through ice. And through it all, Corporal Do-hyun Lee and his Marine squad held the ground positions, protecting landing zones so more refugees could escape. Do-hyun was 23 and had joined the Marines because he wanted adventure. He got more than he bargained for. When a Vorax strike force tried to overrun his position, he held them off for 6 hours with just 8 other Marines. They were surrounded out of ammunition down to using knives and improvised weapons. I think this might be it, one of his Marines said, bleeding from a dozen cuts. Then we make it count, Do-hyun replied, gripping his knife. They're not getting past us. Not while we're still breathing. The Vorax came in a wave of chitin and claws. The Marines met them with fury. It was brutal, desperate combat. No tactics, no strategy, just humans refusing to die. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Do-hyun's squad still standing. Barely, but standing. You held, Sora said, looking at them with something like awe. Against those numbers you actually held. We're human, Do-hyun said, then collapsed. He'd been fighting with 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung. He survived because of course he did. The Battle of Crystallis 4 lasted 3 weeks. 47 human ships became 70, then 100, then 200 as more volunteers arrived. The Vorax threw everything they had at the planet, but they couldn't break the human defense. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand. These humans had no reason to fight so hard for strangers. They had no strategic interest in this world. By all logic, they should have retreated days ago. But humans weren't logical. They were emotional, stubborn, and absolutely refused to accept defeat. Finally, the Vorax withdrew. They didn't understand human psychology, but they understood numbers. The cost of taking this one planet was too high. They would find easier prey elsewhere. As the last Vorax ships jumped away, the battered human fleet held position around Crystallis 4. 3,000 refugees were safe. 38 human ships were destroyed. 2,000 humans were dead, but they had won. Admiral Hyunsik arrived with the second fleet just as the battle ended. He looked at the wreckage, the exhausted crews, the civilians who had fought like soldiers. I came to help, he said to Captain Jiho. But you didn't need me. We need you now, Jiho replied. He pulled up data that Dr. Hana had compiled. The Vorax didn't come here by accident. They're scouts. The main fleet is coming. Millions of ships. And Crystallis 4 was just the beginning. Hyunsik studied the data. His blood ran cold. If this was accurate, the entire galaxy was in danger. Does the Council know? He asked. We sent them everything. They're still debating. Jiho's voice was bitter. While they debate, species die. Someone needs to stop the Vorax. Someone needs to stand up. Hyunsik looked out at the volunteer fleet. Broken ships held together by hope and determination. Civilians who had risked everything for strangers. This was humanity at its best. Not the carefully diplomatic face they showed the council, but the raw, honest courage that had carried them from caves to the stars. Then we stand, Hyunsik said, and we make the galaxy stand with us. The Galactic Council chamber was built to impress. Massive pillars of crystal reached toward a ceiling that displayed the rotating galaxy. Representatives from 200 species sat in elegant chairs, discussing matters of universal importance in calm, measured tones. Today, the chamber was anything but calm. Counselor Isil Shin stood at the human podium and she was angry. At 47, she had spent 20 years in galactic politics, always diplomatic, always careful. Today she was done being careful. Thousands are dead, Isil said, her voice echoing through the chamber. The Quillari begged you for help. They pleaded with you. They showed you images of their dying children. And what did you do? You debated. You formed committees. You discussed protocols. The situation required careful consideration, a Luxari representative said smoothly. Their species looked like living light, beautiful and ethereal. We cannot simply rush into every conflict. You cannot rush into any conflict, Isil shot back. Do you want to know who responded to the Quillari? Humans, not our military, not our government, civilians, miners and engineers and people who owned nothing but a ship and a conscience. They flew into a war zone because someone needed help. While you debated, they acted. While you considered, they died. The human species is young and reckless, a Tethron counselor said. The Tethron were ancient, wise, and completely useless in a crisis. You do not understand the complexities of galactic politics. I understand that complexity is just another word for cowardice. Isil snapped. We're not here to make you feel guilty. We're here to tell you the truth. The Vorax are coming. Not just to the Quillari. Not just to the weak. They're coming for everyone. And when they arrive at your perfect worlds, we won't be there to save you. That got their attention. Captain Min-jae Kwan was 20 light-years away, leading a stealth mission that was either brilliant or suicidal. His ship, the Phoenix Rising, was small and fast. It had to be, because they were going deep into Vorax territory. Getting some interesting readings, his science officer said. The Vorax don't just consume. They're building something. Something big. Min-jae pulled up the scans. His blood went cold. The Vorax had constructed a massive structure in deep space, organic and terrible. Bioships were being grown there, millions of them, all connected to a central node that pulsed with light. That's their hive mind. Dr. Hana's voice came through the comms. She was analyzing the data from the Indomitable. The Vorax don't think individually. They're controlled by a central intelligence. That structure is the brain. Every ship, every soldier, every decision comes from there. Can we destroy it? Min-jae asked. Maybe. But you'd have to get inside it through millions of bioships in a region of space with radiation levels that would kill most species in minutes. But not humans. Humans could survive maybe an hour with the right shielding. That's not much time. Min-jae studied the data. 1 hour to save the galaxy. Typical human luck. He sent the information back to Admiral Hyunsik and Captain Jiho. Then he turned to his crew. Anyone who wants off this mission, speak now. What we're about to do is probably impossible. Nobody moved. Good, Min-jae said. Let's go do the impossible. Back at the council, the session had descended into chaos. Species were arguing, accusations flying. Some blamed humanity for stirring up the Vorax. Others insisted the problem would resolve itself if everyone just ignored it. Then the Rithian ambassador stood. The Rithian were an old species, not as powerful as the Luxari or Tethron, but respected. Ambassador Veltar looked around the chamber with disgust. I am ashamed, Veltar said quietly. I am ashamed of this council. I'm ashamed of my species. The humans showed us what we have become. We are not civilized. We are cowards hiding behind pretty words. Ambassador, you go too far, someone protested. I do not go far enough. Velthar's voice rose. The Vorax will not stop. They will consume world after world until they reach ours. And when that day comes, will we debate? Will we form committees? Or will we finally admit that we forgot how to fight because we forgot how to care? The chamber fell silent. The Rithian fleet is moving to support humanity, Velthar announced. 200 ships? We will stand with the Deathworlders. Not because we must, but because it is right. And if we die, at least we will die with honor. The impact was immediate. Other species began whispering. Some looked ashamed. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked angry, but they couldn't argue with the logic. The Vorax were coming for everyone. On Chrysalis 4, squad leader Sora volunteered for the mission to destroy the Vorax hive node. She knew it was a death sentence. The radiation alone would be deadly, and that was before considering the millions of enemy ships. Why you? Jiho asked her directly. You've done enough. More than enough. Because I grew up on Venus, Sora said simply. I spent my childhood in a pressure dome where one mistake meant death. I learned to function in environments that would kill anyone else. If there's anyone who can survive that radiation long enough to complete the mission, it's someone from a death world. Jiho wanted to argue, but she was right. Earth had made humans tough. Venus had made them tougher. How many do you need? He asked. 20. All volunteers. All people who understand they're probably not coming back. Within an hour, she had 50 volunteers. Sora chose 20, including Corporal Dohyun, who had just recovered from his injuries. You don't have to do this, she told him. You've earned rest. I've earned the right to choose, Dohyun replied. And I choose to finish this. Those Vorax killed innocent people. They need to pay. Dr. Hana worked frantically to improve their radiation shielding. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. But it might buy them the time they needed. The node is protected by quantum entanglement, Hana explained. You can't just blow it up. Someone needs to get inside and manually override its systems. It will take at least 10 minutes. 10 minutes in lethal radiation surrounded by millions of enemies. The odds were impossible. Then we make it possible, Sora said. The plan came together quickly. The main human fleet, now supported by Rithian vessels and a few other species that had found their courage, would assault the Vorax hive fleet directly. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history, a distraction to let Sora's team slip through. Admiral Hunsik addressed the combined fleet. We're about to do something that every tactical computer says is suicide. We're going to charge into the heart of enemy territory and fight millions of ships. Most of us won't survive. But if we succeed, we save trillions of lives. Every species. Every world. That's worth dying for. The crews responded not with words, but with actions. They checked weapons, said goodbyes, made peace with their choices. They were scared. Only fools wouldn't be scared. But fear was just another obstacle to overcome. Captain Minjae's stealth ship continued sending updates. The Vorax were gathering their full strength, preparing for a final assault on Council space. In 2 weeks, they would launch. After that, nothing could stop them. 2 weeks, Jiho said, looking at the data. We have 2 weeks to do the impossible or watch the galaxy burn. Then we'd better get started, Sora said. The United Human Fleet, 3,000 ships now, with Rithian and other allies, prepared to jump into Vorax space. They were outnumbered 300 to 1. Most would die. Success was barely possible. But humans had spent their entire history doing impossible things. They had survived ice ages, conquered diseases, reached for the stars. They had looked at every obstacle nature threw at them and said, not good enough. The Vorax were just another obstacle. As the fleet prepared to jump, Isol sent one final message to the Galactic Council. History will judge what happens next. When your children ask why the Vorax didn't consume the galaxy, you can tell them it's because the Deathworlders refused to let it happen. While you debated, we acted. While you hid, we fought. And while you questioned if it was worth it, we proved that some things are always worth fighting for. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light space, racing toward the greatest battle in galactic history. Behind them, the Council finally voted to send support. It would arrive too late. But that was fine. Humans were used to fighting alone. The Vorax hive fleet was the most terrifying thing humanity had ever seen. Millions of bioships filled the void of space, so many that they blocked out the stars. They pulsed with organic light, connected through invisible quantum threads to the massive central node, a structure the size of a moon, living and breathing and thinking. Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and knew they were all going to die. The tactical computers had stopped trying to calculate odds. There were too many enemy ships. The numbers just read impossible. All ships, Jiho broadcasted to the fleet. You know what we're here to do. We're here to buy time for the strike team. We're here to show these Vorax that humanity doesn't surrender. And we're here to prove that sometimes one species can make all the difference. It's been an honor serving with you. 3,000 human ships charged into hell. The Vorax fleet moved to intercept and the universe erupted in fire. The battle was chaos from the first second. Vorax bioships swarmed like insects, firing biological weapons that melted through armor. Human vessels responded with nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, and in some cases just ramming. A cargo hauler crashed into a Vorax command ship, both vessels exploding in a ball of fire. "This is the Rock Hopper," the mining ship broadcasted.
"We're making our run."
The mining vessel charged through a formation of enemy ships, its drilling laser cutting a path of destruction. They got 20 before Vorax weapons tore them apart. But they bought crucial seconds. Admiral Hunsik coordinated the fleet with cold precision, but even he could see they were being overwhelmed. For every Vorax ship they destroyed, 5 more took its place. "Sir, radiation levels are spiking," his science officer reported. "The closer we get to that central node, the worse it gets. Most of our allies can't continue. Tell them to fall back," Hunsik ordered. "This is human work now." The Raytheon and other allied ships pulled back, unable to withstand the lethal radiation. Only human vessels continued forward, their crews already feeling the effects but pushing on anyway. Deep in the heart of the enemy fleet, squad leader Sora's strike team flew in a small stealth ship. They were invisible to Vorax sensors, but that wouldn't last long. They had one shot at this. 2 minutes to the node, the pilot said. Radiation is already in the red zone. Sora could feel it, a burning sensation in her bones. The radiation was cooking them alive, even through their shielding. They had maybe 30 minutes before it killed them. That would have to be enough. "Remember the plan," she told her team. "We get in, we find the override, and we shut this thing down. No matter what happens, we complete the mission." Corporal Do-hyun checked his weapon for the 100th time. He was scared, but not of dying. He was scared of failing, scared that all these deaths would be for nothing. "We won't fail," Sora said, reading his expression. "We're human. We don't know how." The ship landed on the node's surface, a nightmare landscape of organic matter and pulsing veins. The strike team deployed, cutting their way inside. The interior was worse. Walls that breathed, floors that moved, and the constant feeling of being inside something alive and hostile. They fought through Vorax defenders, elite warriors protecting their hive mind. The combat was brutal. 2 Marines died in the first minute. 3 more fell as they pushed deeper. "Keep moving," Sora shouted, firing at everything that moved. Her radiation counter was screaming, but she ignored it. Pain was just information. It couldn't stop her unless she let it. Outside, the main battle reached its peak. Human ships were dying by the hundreds, but they kept fighting. Captain Minjae's Phoenix Rising led a squadron of fighters against a Vorax supership, sacrificing themselves to bring it down. Nario's prototype weapons were working perfectly, which meant they were exploding violently and taking entire sections of enemy fleet with them. She died when her ship's power core overloaded, taking 50 Vorax vessels with her. Her last words were, "It worked." Una Park coordinated the Indomitable's weapons with surgical precision, every shot counting. When enemy fire damaged their main guns, she rerouted power through secondary systems. When those failed, she used the ship's mining lasers. Nothing was wasted. Dr. Hana worked frantically to keep the fleet connected, routing communications through damaged systems, finding ways to coordinate when everything should have fallen apart. She was the voice keeping thousands of people working as one. Deep inside the node, Sora's team reached the central chamber. Only 8 of them remained. The room was vast, filled with organic computers that hummed with power. At the center was the override terminal, exactly where Hana said it would be. It was also guarded by hundreds of Vorax warriors. "Well," Do-hyun said, "this is going to hurt." They charged. 8 humans against hundreds. It should have been impossible, but impossible was just another Tuesday for Deathworlders. Sora fought like a woman possessed, her movements flowing from one enemy to the next. She was dying, the radiation was killing her cell by cell, but she wasn't dead yet. And until she was dead, she was dangerous. The other Marines fell one by one, buying seconds with their lives. A corporal held off 20 Vorax so his squad mate could advance. A sergeant detonated his own grenades, taking out a wave of enemies. They died, but they died advancing. Finally, only Sora and Do-hyun remained. They stood back to back, surrounded by bodies covered in wounds. "I'll hold them," Do-hyun said. "You get to that terminal." "Nope, that's an order, Sora." Do-hyun smiled, blood on his teeth. "I grew up hearing stories about heroes. Never thought I'd be one. Now go. Make it count." Sora ran for the terminal while Do-hyun charged into the enemy. He fought with everything he had, every technique he'd learned, every ounce of strength left in his dying body. He bought her 10 seconds, 20, 30. It was enough. Sora reached the terminal and began the override sequence. Hana's instructions were clear. Enter the code, activate the shutdown, and hold it for 10 minutes while the system processed. 10 minutes standing still while the Vorax tore her apart. She entered the code. The system began shutting down, and Sora held the button. Vorax warriors swarmed toward her. Behind them, Do-hyun fell, finally overcome. Sora raised her weapon with her free hand and started shooting. She didn't let go of that button 5 minutes. The pain was incredible. Radiation sickness, wounds, exhaustion. Her body was shutting down. 7 minutes. She couldn't feel her legs anymore. Vorax claws ripped into her armor. 9 minutes. Her vision was fading. The world was going dark. 10 minutes. The system shut down. Across the entire Vorax fleet, millions of ships suddenly went dark. The hive mind was gone, and with it, every Vorax's purpose and direction. They drifted, confused, alone. Easy targets. Outside, the human fleet saw their opportunity and struck hard. What had been an organized swarm became isolated ships, vulnerable and lost. The battle turned in seconds. Captain Jiho watched through tears as the Vorax fleet fell apart. "They did it," he whispered. "Those magnificent fools actually did it." The strike team was gone. All 20 of them. They had known they wouldn't survive, and they had gone anyway. The Vorax fleet was destroyed within hours. Without their hive mind, they were nothing. The threat that could have consumed the galaxy was ended by 20 humans who refused to quit. The human fleet limped back to Council space. Of the 3,000 ships that had started the battle, fewer than 2,000 returned. The death toll was staggering. Tens of thousands of humans had died, but trillions of lives were saved. Every species, every world. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. This time, they didn't debate. They stood as humanity's representatives entered. Counselor Isol walked to the podium, exhausted and grieving. "We didn't do this for your approval. We didn't do it for reward. We did it because it was right. Because when someone needs help, you help them. That's what civilized beings do." The council tried to offer compensation, reparations, honors. Earth refused them all. Instead, humanity demanded reforms. A real defense pact. A promise that no species would be abandoned again. An end to the cowardice that had let this crisis happen. The council agreed. They had no choice. The Deathworlders had saved them, and everyone knew it. On Crystallis 4, the Quillari built a memorial. It was a wall of crystal that reached toward the sky, and carved into it were thousands of names. Human names. The names of those who had died saving people they had never met. Elder Silvereth stood before it every day, reading the names aloud so they would not be forgotten. Captain Jiho retired from service, too haunted by the losses to continue. But he knew they had made a difference. He had seen the galaxy change, seen species learn that courage mattered more than comfort. Admiral Hyunsik took command of Earth's expanded fleet. More ships were being built, better weapons developed. Not because humanity wanted war, but because someone needed to be ready. Someone needed to be willing to fight when others couldn't. Dr. Hana became Earth's ambassador of interspecies relations. She traveled the galaxy, teaching other species about humanity, about how struggle created strength, about how death could teach you to value life, about why being from a death world wasn't a weakness, it was the greatest gift evolution could give. Years later, a young Quillari asked Elder Silvereth why humanity had helped them when no one else would. The Elder's crystalline body shimmered with remembered light. "Because